Chapter 221, Visiting the Prison Again. Alaric took the mask out of the treasury. He needed to report it to the Baron as part of the family rules. However, he found out that his father wasn't in his study room, so he decided to report the matter later. Weird. Dad is usually in his study at this time of the day. As he thought of this, he recalled his conversation with his father during their return trip. Wait. Don't tell me he is with Mom right now. Alaric chuckled. It seems like I will have a younger sibling soon. Alaric was in a good mood as he walked back to his bedchamber. As soon as he arrived, he handed the executioner's mask to Ulrich. Try and see if it fits. The giant nodded and took the mask from his hand. He then wore it without hesitation. Others would have hesitated if they had sensed the eerie aura of the mask, but Ulrich didn't seem to care about this. The moment he wore the mask, his entire aura drastically changed. With one look, others would mistake him as a ruthless murderer. This was the unique effect of wearing the executioner's mask. My lord, this is a relic-level mask. Are you really going to give this to me? Ulrich's voice had also changed. It was deeper and more full. Even someone close to him wouldn't recognize him anymore. Alaric was satisfied. He initially had misgivings since the mask looked very sketchy, but it seemed like his worries were unfounded. From now on, you are Butch. You cannot use your real name anymore. Are you alright with this? Alaric gave him a random name which was just a shortened version of his moniker, the Butcher. The giant calmly nodded. As you wish, my lord. Good. Follow me outside. I need to introduce you to our people. Otherwise, they might mistake you for a criminal. Yes, my lord. The next morning, Alaric headed to the prison with Ulrich, who was renamed as Butch. Alaric had introduced him to the household's warriors and servants, so everyone had learned that another elite knight was serving him, a scary one at that. He had the same build as Galliner, but he looked more intimidating and terrifying than him. Most of the warriors and servants were afraid of him and they wouldn't even dare meet his gaze. Even some of the knights and elite knights didn't want to interact with him. Alaric headed to the prison cell where the assassins were being held. The place was tightly guarded by the warriors of the household since there were many heinous criminals kept there. The one managing the prison was a newly promoted elite knight who had served his father for 4 decades. It was an old warrior named Peter. He was only a few years younger than Henry, who was the oldest warrior in the household. Peter was a very chatty old man. He was different from the other warriors who were usually stern and rigid. He was just like one of those friendly neighborhood old men you can find anywhere. Unlike most of the people in the household who were afraid of Butch, Peter didn't seem to be afraid of him. He even initiated a conversation with the giant, chatting non-stop along the way. Butch wasn't much of a conversationalist, so he only responded occasionally. We are here, my lord. Lord Lucas instructed us to increase the security, so I asked 4 warriors to look after this cell. Peter casually mentioned. I see. Alaric nodded. Sir Peter, please unlock the cell. I would like to speak with the prisoners. Yes, my lord. The old man responded before he told his subordinates to unlock the cell. Click. Do you want me to follow you inside, my lord? Peter asked. Alaric shook his head. There is no need to trouble you, Sir Peter. Besides, I already have Sir Butch with me. Peter stared at the giant when he said those words. He smiled wryly and shook his head. With Sir Butch at your side, there is indeed no need for a frail old man like me to follow you, my lord. Alaric tapped the old man's shoulder before he entered the cell. He walked toward Austin, who was chained in the furthest corner of the cell. I have given you enough time to decide. What is your decision, Austin? Austin lifted his head, revealing his bloodshot eyes. From the looks on his face, it seemed like he didn't have a good night's sleep. However, Alaric couldn't care less about what he had gone through. His eyes remained cold as he waited for Austin to respond. After a moment of silence, Austin opened his mouth. I will expose the truth, but you must vow to Aru that you will fulfill your promise." He was afraid that Alaric would go back on his word, so he added this request as an assurance. For the followers of the benevolent god, this was a very serious thing. They believed that if they failed to fulfill their vows to Aru, their souls would wander in hell for all eternity. Alaric squinted his eyes before he nodded his head. "All right. I accept your request." He raised his hand and closed his eyes as he made his vow. "I promise that I will not lay a hand on you guys if you expose the truth. If I fail to deliver this promise, then my soul shall wander hell for all eternity." Austin didn't expect him to agree so easily. He felt that it was too suspicious, but he couldn't say anything since Alaric made his vow in front of them. "When do you want me to expose everything?" Austin muttered. Alaric smiled faintly and replied, "You do not need to know that. Just wait for a few days. Soon, I will ask you to fulfill your end of the deal." Austin furrowed his eyebrows. He felt that Alaric was hard to discern, and this made him feel unsettled. "You will be freemen soon, so I will ask the guards to transfer you somewhere more comfortable. This place is no longer suitable for you guys." Alaric left after saying these words. As soon as he left, Austin leaned against the wall, feeling exhausted and worn out. Chapter 222, Vivian and Leandro escapes. House Silversword sent word to the residents of North Pine Town saying that the assassins who had tried to kill Hershey would confess and expose the person who had sent them. This news also reached the ears of Vivian, who had been in a constant state of anxiety after the assassination attempt on her stepdaughter failed. Vivian paced around her room with a gloomy expression. Damn it. How could Austin fail? What a useless bastard. I should have sent Leandro to do it. She smashed the expensive jade vases inside her room the more she thought about this. She had expended a lot of resources on Austin and his elite team, but they had been captured on their first official mission. My lady, it's my fault. I didn't train them well. Please punish me. The handsome middle-aged warrior, Leandro, kneeled with a look of remorse. Vivian's expression softened when she saw him kneeling before her. She quickly hugged him and rested her head on his chest as she whispered. It is not your fault, Leandro. Austin is to be blamed for his incompetence. Leandro sighed and hugged her tighter. Things might get dangerous for us soon, my lady. Although Austin and the others are trained to withstand torture, we don't know the means of House Silversword. They might have found a way to make those guys confess. He paused for a moment before he continued. Once the truth comes out, we will be condemned by the public and Lord Nathan will definitely kick us out of the household. There is also a high chance that we will be executed. Vivian trembled when she heard this. No. I cannot accept this. We don't have a choice, my lady. We must leave now before it's too late. I have already made the arrangements, please follow me. Leandro stared deeply at her. Vivian gritted her teeth with an indignant expression. She didn't want to leave the luxurious life she was used to, but she knew that she had to make this choice to survive. All right. She replied with reluctance. Leandro brought her out of the main mansion after helping her put on a robe to disguise her appearance. Outside the main mansion, a carriage was already waiting for them. Where are we headed to? Vivian asked as she looked at Leandro. Leandro gently squeezed her hand and replied. To Riverwake. I maintained contact with Lord Liam. He is there with a new identity. We can seek refuge in his faction. Hearing this, Vivian raised an eyebrow. Why don't we head to my family instead? I am sure they would be willing to let us hide for a while. Leandro shook his head. We can't, my lady. If your family is implicated in this scandal, they will face severe consequences. We can't let that happen. Seeking refuge from Lord Liam is the best choice for us. I heard that he had established a big faction in Riverwake. It shouldn't be difficult for him to hide us. He added. Vivian was convinced by his words, so she nodded her head. All right. I will trust your decision. Thank you for trusting me, my lady. Leandro kissed her hand and smiled at her. Go, he instructed the coachman. Baron Nathan was dealing with some documents when his trusted butler came in with an urgent expression. My lord. The Baron was startled. What happened? Why are you in such a hurry? He asked with a frown. The butler took a deep breath before he replied. My lord, the madam left with her bodyguard without leaving a message. I think there is something suspicious going on between them. What? Baron Nathan was furious. He slammed his hand into the table. The butler hesitated before he added. I saw him kissing the madam's hand in a very intimate manner. The Baron almost passed out from rage. His wife actually cheated on him with a handsome warrior. I had been suspicious of that guy for a long time. It turns out I was right. Damn it. Vivian, you made me look like a fool. Summon our warriors and tell them to capture my adulterous wife and that gigolo. Go. He barked out. Yes, my lord. The butler bowed and left in a hurry. After he left, Baron Nathan slumped into his chair with a depressed look. Why do I have to go through all this suffering? What have I done, Aru? He muttered. A few days later, a stage was set up in the central square of North Pine Town. The residents had already gathered, patiently waiting for the announcement of House Silversword. I wonder who sent those assassins. It must be one of the northern houses who are against House Silversword. Why did they go after Lady Hershey? She is such an innocent and kind young woman. I pity her. She must have been traumatized. The crowd chatted between themselves. Suddenly, they saw the warriors of House Silversword escorting a small group of men dressed in filthy clothes. Who are those people? Are they the assassins? I have no idea. They look like beggars to me. The residents discussed heatedly when they saw these people. The warriors of House Silversword brought the men on the stage and had them line up in front of the crowd. At this moment, another group arrived, and the person leading them was Alaric. It's Lord Alaric. Lord Alaric. Lord Alaric. The residents were excited to see him. Alaric sent a construction team to help them rebuild their homes. He even expanded the arable land, giving plenty of job opportunities for the townspeople. Almost everyone in the town had received his help, so they respected him. Alaric raised his hand and waved at them with a faint smile on his face. He then walked toward the stage with Butch and Galliner closely following behind him. Looking at the towering giants, the residents felt intimidated. Some kids even cried when they saw the two. They were especially afraid of the giant wearing a scary-looking mask. Alaric stepped onto the stage and said, Everyone, may I have your attention, please? Chapter 223, The Assassin's Confession. These men are the assassins sent to harm my fiancé, and today, they will confess their crimes and expose the person who sent them. When Alaric made this announcement, the crowd was furious. Some of them were to throw stones at the assassins, but they were stopped by the warriors of House Silversword. Why are you stopping us, brave warriors? Those lunatics must be punished. Step aside, warriors. I want to smash this rock on their faces. The warriors remained firm. They didn't allow the residents to harm the assassins. To stop the crowd from causing a disturbance, Alaric had to step in. Everyone, please stop at once and hear me out. The residents calmed down upon hearing his words. Seeing that he had gathered their attention, Alaric cleared his throat and said, These men are not the real culprits. They are only tools used by those behind them to fulfill their wicked desires. Alaric almost cringed when he said these words, but he had to act his part well to make his plan work. Otherwise, those assassins might not do their end of the deal and choose to stay silent. He couldn't let that happen. I have already prepared everything. I only need convincing evidence to make those bastards pay. When Austin and the assassins heard this, the last suspicions they had for Alaric vanished. I was overthinking it. Lord Alaric is not one of those merciless nobles. Austin stared at the young man who was overflowing with charisma. He felt that it was regrettable that he couldn't have the chance to serve such a great man. Alaric turned his gaze to them and smiled. Austin, the stage is yours. Please tell us the true culprit behind this crime. Austin took a deep breath and nodded. He looked at his companions and swept his gaze over the crowd before he opened his mouth. We were sent by Leandro and Lady Vivian of House Paxley. His words rang like thunder in everyone's ears. They couldn't believe it. The one who wanted Hershey dead turned out to be her stepmother. It was too shocking that the residents found it hard to believe. If my words are untrue, then my soul shall wander hell for all eternity. Austin added. He's right. It was Vivian who sent us. Another assassin shouted. That's right. She sent us to assassinate Lady Hershey. The assassins gave the same statement, so no one doubted them anymore. They had even made a vow to Aru. Oh my God. How could Lady Vivian do this to her own stepdaughter? She must have been possessed by an evil spirit. She must be exorcised and killed. Burn her to death. The crowd expressed their fury upon learning the truth. At this moment, Alaric approached Austin and tapped the man's shoulder. Thank you for exposing the true culprit. May Aru guide you back into the right path. Austin lowered his head. It should be us thanking you, my lord. Thank you for giving us the chance to correct our mistakes. We will honor our promise. We will go somewhere far away and start over. Do not leave just yet. Alaric suddenly grabbed his shoulder, a broad grin hanging on his lips. Austin felt unsettled when he saw Alaric's expression. What do you mean, my lord? Alaric smiled and made a signal to his subordinates as he replied. I have prepared a huge surprise for you guys, so you better watch it first before you leave. His harmless smile made Austin feel unnerved. He hesitated for a moment before he nodded. All right, my lord. We will stay. Good. Alaric snapped his fingers. The next moment, a slave wagon carrying 2 people was pulled toward the stage. Everyone squinted their eyes to get a clearer look at the two. It's Lady Vivian. That's definitely her. I saw her once in Rivad. I can't forget that arrogant face of hers. Some people recognized the woman inside the slave wagon. It was indeed Vivian, the wife of Baron Nathan. A few days ago, Alaric sent a team of his most trusted subordinates to prepare an ambush for Vivian. Alaric knew that she would try to escape once she heard the news about the assassin's public confession. She brought her private warriors during her escape, but how could they beat an elite team led by Galliner himself? The moment they stepped out of Paxley's domain, Galliner's team ambushed them effortlessly. Release me. Do you know the consequences of imprisoning me? Are you idiots out of your minds? Shouted Vivian as she grabbed the metal bar in frustration. Alaric, how dare you capture a noble lady? This is kidnapping. The imperial family will punish you for this. Vivian was feeling anxious, so she could only resort to threats. Meanwhile, Leandro, who had been captured along with her, looked completely lost and helpless. His handsome face has been disfigured after being beaten up by Galliner's men. He was almost unrecognizable. Austin and the assassins were stunned when they saw Vivian and Leandro inside the slave wagon. How did they capture them in such a short time? Austin felt a wave of fear at Alaric's efficiency. Only a few days had passed since he had last spoken with him, but they had already captured Vivian and Leandro. This meant that he was already aware of the true mastermind, and he only waited to this day to get the evidence from his mouth. Austin couldn't help but tremble. Are you all right, Sir Austin? Alaric's nonchalant voice drifted into his ears, making him feel a sudden chill. I'm all right, my lord, Austin responded nervously. Alaric placed his arm over Austin's shoulder and whispered. Just sit back and watch how those two will be punished. Austin wanted to push him away, but he found himself unable to muster the courage. In the end, he could only respond with a nod. Did I just make a deal with a demon? He won't go back on his words, right? Chapter 224, A Fitting Punishment. The warriors of House Silversword grabbed Vivian and Leandro out of the slave wagon and dragged them to the stage. Alaric, what do you think are you doing? Do you plan to make an enemy of House Paxley and my House Harrison? Vivian was the youngest daughter of House Harrison's family head. It was a northeastern viscounty that was much larger than North Pine Town, and they also possessed strong military power. Vivian thought that they would be afraid of her family, but she didn't get the reaction she wanted. What she met was everyone's disdainful gazes. House Paxley does not recognize you. A furious voice echoed. The crowd turned their heads toward the new group that had arrived. It was Baron Nathan. He had become much thinner in just a few days. His son, Theo, even had to support him since he had become extremely weak after not eating for several days. Vivian was stunned when she heard this familiar voice. Husband. Help me. These people wrongly captured me. She cried pitifully. Nathan Paxley was disgusted by her poor acting. Enough. Do you think you can still fool me with your words? Vivian, I came here to watch you get punished for the crimes you have committed. His voice trembled with emotion. He still couldn't accept that he had been betrayed by his wife. Vivian was terrified. How could you be so heartless, Nathan? How could you do this to me? She screamed in a high-pitched voice. Nathan stared at her with a cold smile. You think I am the heartless one? After fooling around with that gigolo and sending people to assassinate my daughter, you still dare to utter nonsense? Shame on you. He spat a mouthful of saliva as if to mock her. He then looked at Alaric and cupped his fists. My lord, please proceed with the punishment. Hershey patted her father's back. He wasn't a perfect father, but he had provided her with everything that she needed. She felt hurt to see him in such a terrible state. Meanwhile, Vivian was still not done with her charade. She pointed to Leandro and shouted. Wait. It is not me. I was not the one who sent those assassins. It was him. It was solely his decision. It has nothing to do with me. Everyone felt even more disgusted when they heard this. Alaric had enough of her annoying voice, so he made a hand gesture to his subordinates and said, Make her shut up. A warrior took the initiative to do this task. He approached Vivian and forcefully shoved a piece of cloth in her mouth. Amen. Vivian tried to bite the warrior out of anger, but she failed. Pa. The warrior then gave her a resounding slap. Please stop causing trouble, my lady. My hand gets itchy when I see something annoying. Vivian couldn't believe that a lowly warrior would actually dare to lay a hand on her. She was furious, but she didn't dare make a noise anymore. She just glared at the warrior. On the other hand, Leandro looked listless. He didn't even say anything when Vivian tried to push all the blame on him. It was as if he had completely given up. The warriors dragged them to the center of the stage where a pole was being erected. Lord Nathan, what do you think is a fitting punishment for these two sinners? Alaric stared deeply at the Baron. He wanted to know the extent of Nathan Paxley's determination. The Baron narrowed his eyes and replied with a cold voice. They must be burned to death. There was no hesitation in his voice. Hearing this, Alaric's lips curved upward. What a coincidence. I thought so too. He had prepared this metal pole for this very reason. He just didn't expect that Nathan Paxley was actually ruthless enough to make this decision. Is anyone against this punishment? Alaric scanned the crowd, his gaze momentarily stopping on Theo and Hershey. To his surprise, the two didn't seem to have a strong reaction. Since there are no objections, tie up the criminals. Alaric instructed his subordinates. The warriors immediately tied the adulterous couple to the metal pole. Vivian squirmed vigorously with a pleading look on her face. However, no one felt pity for her. Take out the cloth from her mouth. I want to hear her screams. Alaric's words made everyone feel a chill in their hearts. He said it in a calm tone, but they could sense his fury. A warrior approached Vivian and took out the cloth from her mouth. Wait. Wait. Please give me a chance to explain. I want to write a letter to my family. Alaric, I promise to give you anything that you want. Just release me, please. I am begging you. Vivian hadn't given up. She begged for mercy with a remorseful voice, but her pleading fell on deaf ears. At this moment, the warriors threw dried firewood around the pole while the crowd watched with cold faces. Seeing that her pleas were useless, Vivian's expression darkened. Alaric. You will pay for this. My house Harrison will never forgive you. My son, Liam, will avenge me. She shouted in a sharp, high-pitched voice. Alaric remained calm and indifferent in the face of her threats. With an arm over Austin's shoulder, he whispered. Sir Austin, watch what happens when you make an enemy out of me. Austin's knees almost buckled when he heard his words. Alaric made another hand gesture. Right after he made the signal, a warrior spread flammable oil on the firewood and he even splashed some of the oil on Vivian and Leandro. Austin heard Alaric's amused laughter as he watched this scene. A demon. He is definitely a demon. I will never go near him again. Never. Burn them. Alaric shouted. As his words fell, another warrior threw a lit torch toward the firewood. The firewood was lit ablaze, creating a furious flame. Vivian's screams echoed as the fire slowly burned her flesh. Ah! Help me! Ah! Help! Ah! Chapter 225, Copperglade and House Harrison. News about Vivian's death spread like wildfire. She was a noble lady, someone with a high status. However, this didn't save her from receiving a brutal punishment from Alaric. This made everyone feel afraid of offending Alaric and House Silversword. The family heads of the northern houses repeatedly warned their children not to offend Hershey Paxley or anyone from House Silversword. Some even added it as a rule in their household. This news also reached the ears of Liam Paxley. How dare you, Alaric? I am going to kill you one day. I promise you. Liam's eyes burned with hatred. He burned the letter he got from his subordinates and took a moment of silence to calm down. His newly established alliance might be powerful in Riverwake, but compared to House Silversword, he knew there was still a huge difference. Furthermore, the alliance was subdivided into multiple factions, so there was still a lot of work to do. Liam stood up and walked toward the mirror to take a look at his own reflection. He had become more mature and his facial scar made him look thuggish. He had also gained some muscles from the constant physical training. Someone familiar with him might not be able to recognize him anymore. He had become an entirely different person. The next step of my plan is to buy a noble title from a fallen nobility. He muttered. His current identity was that of a criminal, so there were plenty of things that he couldn't do in broad daylight. If he had a noble title, things would be a lot easier for him. He also wouldn't need to hide himself once he got a new identity. Which means that he would be free to roam around again. He turned around and walked toward the cabinet to get a certain document. Written on this piece of document was the information of a fallen barony. Tyler household. Liam rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. What would be a good name for me? He couldn't use his real name anymore and his current moniker was too vulgar for his taste. After a few seconds of silence, Liam's eyes lit up. Male Tyler. Soon afterward, his laughter echoed inside the room. Meanwhile, somewhere in the northeast, there was a city known for its high coal production, Copperglade. The coal that everyone in the north used mostly came from this city. Two families controlled the coal industry in Copperglade, House Harrison, and the merchant family, House Keller. In terms of annual profits, House Harrison was way ahead compared to its main competitor, which is House Keller. This was because House Harrison had extended its business to other parts of the empire. Whereas, House Keller mostly focused on the northern market. At this moment, a heated discussion was taking place inside the meeting room of House Harrison. My lord, this is a direct slap to our faces. How dare that little bastard, Alaric, kill a descendant of House Harrison? We cannot let this go. We must do something about this or our household will be mocked by the northern houses. I agree with them, my lord. Alaric did something unforgivable. If we remain silent, others might say that we are afraid of them. So what if they have 3 transcendent knights? Although we only have 1 transcendent knight, Sir Tristan is ranked 18th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Lucas might be powerful, but he cannot go out of his territory all the time. As for the other 2 transcendents they had just recently advanced. Are you sure they only have 3 transcendents? From what I heard, they have 4. Who cares if they have 4? We can just ask our allies for some military support. It was getting out of control, so the family head of House Harrison, Darvin Harrison, had to intervene. Silence. He shouted in a commanding tone. Everyone immediately turned silent upon hearing the old man's voice. Darvin Harrison wasn't a warrior, but he had developed a commanding aura after being a viscount for several decades. His back was still straight like a sword even though he was already in his 70s. House Silversword only has 3 transcendents, including Lucas. However, I heard that the former commander of Vale's armed guards had recently advanced to transcendent because of House Silversword's help. Yes, I am talking about William. Darvin looked at everyone's faces and continued. Although he hadn't sworn his allegiance to House Silversword, William had always answered their call. This means that they have 4 transcendents on their side. The only advantage we have over them is we have a higher number of elite knights and knights. Our warriors are also equipped with armor made from the central region. However, he paused and squinted his eyes. In front of absolute power, this is meaningless. Everyone took a deep breath. They didn't want to accept it, but they knew that House Silversword had already become a force to be reckoned with. A middle-aged man wearing battle armor slammed his hand on the table and shouted furiously. My lord, I cannot accept this humiliation. That bastard killed my sister. I must take revenge. Everyone turned their gazes at this person. He was the eldest son of Viscount Darvin and the heir of House Harrison, Richard Harrison. This guy was already in his 50s and he was also a strong warrior in the realm of elite knights. His martial power solidified his position as the heir of the household. Richard was the only one who would dare to speak like this in front of the Viscount. Darvin stared deeply at him and smiled coldly. I did not say that we will not take revenge. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Richard raised an eyebrow and asked. What do I need to do, my lord? Just tell me. Darvin cleared his throat and replied with a strange smile. Have you guys forgotten that Alaric's maternal grandfather lives in our city? There was collective gasp of surprise when the people inside the meeting room heard his words. Chapter 226, Maria's Suggestion. My lord, are you talking about Anton Keller? Someone asked. Darvin responded with a chuckle. Who else? That guy has been trying to steal our clients from the central region. Isn't this a good opportunity to get rid of him? We just need to exaggerate it a bit to make the public feel that we are doing nothing wrong. Brilliant. We might not be able to do something with House Silversword but against a merchant family. What could they do to us? Ha ha ha. You are truly wise, my lord. Tell us your plan, my lord. Richard couldn't wait to hear the Viscount's schemes. Darvin leaned on his seat and crossed his arms. Here is what we need to do. Inside Lucas' study, Baron Nathan came to visit to discuss something important with Lucas. Please take your seat, my lord. Lucas offered Nathan a seat. Thank you. Nathan nodded. After taking his seat, Nathan didn't waste any time with useless chit-chat and immediately stated his intention. My lord, my house Paxley has faced big challenges in the past few months. Now that Vivian has been killed, many creditors have come to collect the money she had borrowed. It is embarrassing, but the amount she borrowed is not something that we can pay immediately. I compiled all the receipts here. Please take a look. He handed a few pieces of paper to Lucas, but the latter didn't take them. This made Nathan a bit nervous. "My lord." Lucas raised his hand and stopped him from speaking. He then responded in a calm voice. "You do not need to show me these documents, Lord Nathan. I trust in your credibility. If you need money, just tell me how much you need." Nathan was ecstatic. He had been worried all this time and he was even prepared to lose some of his properties in exchange for his help, but it seemed like he was overthinking it. "Thank you, my lord." Lucas waved his hand. "There is no need to thank me, Lord Nathan. Besides, we will become a family soon. Let us talk about this later." He smiled and changed his sitting posture to a more comfortable one. "I would like to discuss our children's marriage." "Of course. The children's marriage is more important. Please tell me your thoughts on this, my lord." Nathan was more excited than him about this marriage. House Paxley was currently facing financial difficulties, but things would change after Hershey and Alaric's marriage. He could already imagine the future benefits they would receive. While the two were discussing their children's marriage, Alaric was having a serious conversation with his mother in the main hall. Hershey and Elena were also there, but only the former occasionally joined their conversation, while Elena was there to serve them tea. "Alaric, I do not blame you for punishing Vivian, but your decision has thoroughly offended House Harrison," Maria remarked with a stern face. Alaric frowned. He had also thought of this before making that decision, but he was prepared for what was to come. "I understand your concern, my lady. I know you are worried about grandfather, but you do not need to worry, my lady. I have already sent Sir Warwick and Sir Fredrin to Copperglade. I have also sent word to our allies in the northeast to send military support to House Keller." He had received a tip from someone saying that they had seen Liam in Riverwake. He wanted to confirm this with his own eyes, and it just happened that Riverwake and Copperglade were quite close. He hadn't told his family about this information since there was a high chance that it wasn't true. Maria sighed when she saw her son's determined expression. "Since you have already thought this through, I will not say anything more. Please trust me, my lady. I will not allow anyone to harm my grandfather, even if it is a viscount." Alaric spoke in a cold voice. Maria smiled and shook her head helplessly. Her son had become more mature in just a few months. She could still remember him complaining because his physical training was too tiring. "You should go and bring Hershey somewhere special. I recommend the Garden of Roses in Vale. That place is famous among couples. Your father had even brought me there," she suggested. She wanted her son to forget about the matters of the household temporarily and focus his attention on his soon-to-be wife. Hearing this, Hershey blushed in embarrassment, but there was also a trace of expectation in her eyes. She had been there before, but she had only brought her personal maidservant at that time, so she didn't quite enjoy the place. However, things would be entirely different if she went there with Alaric. While she was excitedly thinking about what they would do in the Garden of Roses, she suddenly noticed the unusual expression on Elena's face. She gently grabbed Elena's arm and said, "Why don't we bring Elena with us? I am sure it will be more fun with her." Maria was taken aback. She didn't expect her to suggest this. She thought that Hershey would be annoyed with Elena, but from the looks of it, things were completely different than she had imagined. "But my lady..." Elena hesitated. She understood Hershey's good intentions, but she was embarrassed to tag along with them. Hershey gently squeezed her hand as she smiled at her. "You do not need to be embarrassed, Elena. You will also be married to Alaric soon. Isn't this a good opportunity for us three to have fun together?" Seeing her hesitation, Alaric chimed in. "Hershey is right, Elena. It would be a pity if you missed the Garden of Roses. I heard that it is such a beautiful place." Elena was silent for a moment, but when she saw their encouraging faces, she nodded helplessly. "All right. I will go with you." "Great. You will not regret it, Elena. I promise you." Hershey was happy that she had accepted her request. "You guys should go and prepare for the trip." Alaric felt that this was a nice change of pace. He had been in constant fear since his regression, so this might be a good chance for him to relax. Chapter 227, Meeting Roy Again. Alaric took an impromptu trip to the Garden of Roses with Elena and Hershey. To ensure their safety, he thought of bringing Butch and Galliner with him. However, the former looked so scary that his presence alone made Elena and Hershey uncomfortable. In the end, Alaric decided to bring Franklin instead. This guy was a former slave warrior, so Alaric wanted to bring him somewhere peaceful to expand his horizons. Alaric also brought some of the new knight apprentices as escort warriors. Rasmus, you were once a resident of Vale. Have you been to the Garden of Roses? Asked Wolf, the youngest knight apprentice in the group. Rasmus shook his head and replied with a bitter smile. How can I afford to visit such a wonderful place? I spent most of my time helping with the chores in the orphanage. I see. No wonder the kids in the orphanage like you the most. Wolf chuckled. That's true. Those kids. While they were chatting, the people behind them were unusually quiet. This was because Aaliyah was giving them the death stare. She wasn't fond of idle chit-chat and she held strong aversion toward the opposite gender. Because of her personality, they had given her nicknames like Thorny Flower, Fiery Tigress, etc. The only man that she looked up to was her sword instructor and her savior, Alaric. Aaliyah secretly harbored affection toward him, but she felt that she didn't deserve him because she was someone who had been defiled before. Furthermore, a dreadful scar had been inflicted on her beautiful face. For these reasons, she chose to bury her feelings and focused on improving her swordsmanship to be more useful to Alaric. Aaliyah turned her head and took a glance at the carriage, but she quickly averted her gaze. At this moment, Franklin, who was in front of the entourage, suddenly raised his hand and stopped everyone from marching. What is going on, Sir Franklin? Rasmus asked while staring at him with his eyebrows furrowed. Franklin narrowed his eyes as he replied. There are people approaching us and there seems to be a lot of them. Go and report the situation to Lord Alaric. Hearing this, Rasmus nodded his head. Yes, sir. He pulled the reins of his horse and urged it to march toward the carriage. He then cupped his fists while facing the carriage door and reported. My lord, there is a group headed in our direction. What are your orders? I know. Alaric's response came immediately. Just tell everyone not to make a fuss. Those people are not enemies. They are just traders, slave traders to be exact. He added. Slave traders? Rasmus' face darkened upon hearing this. He had a bad experience with these people when he was still in the orphanage. They had repeatedly tried to get their hands on the children. They even went as far as to threaten them to fulfill their goals. If it weren't for William, some of his younger siblings might have been forcibly taken by those people. Thinking about this, Rasmus almost failed to hold back his anger. He took a deep breath to calm down before he acknowledged Alaric's instructions. Yes, my lord. After Rasmus left, Alaric looked at Hershey and Elena with a serious expression as he said. Whatever you see later, do not feel burdened by it. There are things in this world that we cannot change no matter how strong we have become. The two ladies felt nervous when they heard his mysterious words. All right, Hershey replied, while Elena simply nodded her head. A moment later, they finally crossed paths with the slave traders and there were familiar faces among them. My lord, the slave trader introduced himself as a merchant named Roy. He says he is from Harrow. He wants to speak with you. Rasmus reported. Alaric frowned. He didn't want to meet this person again, but it seemed like the guy was still the same man he had seen back then. Tell him to wait. Yes, my lord. Roy, who would have thought that I would see you again? Alaric told the ladies to remain inside before he stepped out of the carriage. This was because he saw the goods that Roy had brought with him. If the ladies saw them, they might feel uncomfortable. Oh, my. We meet again, my lord. Fate is truly fascinating, isn't it? The fat merchant, Roy, approached him with a surprised face. So the person I met back then was actually the famous rising star, Alaric Silversword. He had never forgotten the deal he made with this young warrior. Alaric had exchanged a fatal-grade beast soul crystal for a few slaves. It was a deal that brought him a lot of profit. Indeed. I wonder where you are headed this time, Sir Roy. Will it be all right for you to disclose this information? Alaric probed with a faint smile. This direction only led to North Pine Town, but he wanted to confirm this from Roy's mouth. Roy gulped nervously when he sensed the underlying message behind his inquiry. He squeezed out a smile as he replied. To tell you the truth, we are heading to North Pine Town. He noticed Alaric raising an eyebrow when he mentioned this, so he quickly added. But you can rest assured, my lord. We are not heading there to do some shady things. I have a client who requested to do the trade in your town, but I hope that you won't ask me their name, my lord. I can't disclose any information about my clients, even if it's you. Hearing this, Alaric was amused. This was Roy telling him that he had someone backing him up. I see. I respect you for protecting the privacy of your clients. Alaric was no longer interested in prolonging their conversation, but before he could excuse himself, Roy said. It was destiny that brought us once more, my lord. Why don't you check my goods? I'm sure you will like them. Ha ha ha. You see, I brought a special product with me, my lord. Roy whispered with a broad smile. Alaric frowned, feeling somewhat annoyed, but he decided to play along with him. Fine, but I am in a hurry, so let us get going. I will make the introductions quick, my lord. I guarantee that you won't regret it. Roy eagerly brought him to the slave wagons to show off his goods. He noticed the elite knight leading Roy's escort warrior. It was the same warrior he had seen back then when he purchased Fredrin from Roy. The elite knight seemed to have noticed his gaze and turned his head to him. It's him. This is the entourage of House Silversword. Does this mean he is Alaric? He had also reached the same conclusion as Roy. It wasn't that difficult to guess Alaric's identity since House Silversword only had one heir. He immediately cupped his fists to Alaric to show his respect. Seeing this, Alaric smiled and nodded to him. The elite knight wasn't offended by this simple response, for this was how nobles usually respond to someone. Some of the arrogant nobles even ignore people like him who do escort jobs. My lord, what do you think of these goods? I only brought women this time since my client requested this. Most of these women are commoners, but there are 2 of them who came from a merchant family. You see those young ladies over there? Their father became addicted to gambling and he lost all his wealth, so he sold off his daughters to pay off his debts. Roy's tone was filled with disdain when he mentioned the father of the 2 poor ladies. Alaric looked at the 2 women he was referring to. Both of them had coppery auburn hair and light hazel eyes. The older one looked to be in her mid-20s. She was quite tall and her figure was impressive in certain areas. She was a looker too. On the other hand, the younger one looked like someone in her late teens. She was shorter than her elder sister by half a foot. Unlike her sister, who had a valiant appearance, she was more feminine. She had freckles on her face and she wore a white dress, which was a stark contrast to her sister who wore battle armor. While Alaric was staring at them, Roy's voice drifted into his ears. The older one is a knight and the younger one is a one-ringed beast soul master. Impressive, right? Alaric had also sensed the aura of the 2 women. He didn't make a thorough check on the slave wagons, so he failed to detect them earlier. He felt tempted to buy them, but he was afraid that Hershey and Elena might misunderstand him. Just as he was about to say something, he heard a soft exclamation from the carriage. He immediately turned his head. He saw Elena and Hershey poking their heads out of the carriage window. Chapter 228, Alaric's Offer. You too. Alaric sighed. A moment later, they stepped out of the carriage. Hershey wore a gloomy look on her face, while Elena nervously followed her. I didn't want you to see this, Alaric said in a helpless tone. He was worried that they would feel uncomfortable upon seeing all these slave women. Hershey shook her head and responded with a serious voice. I will be fine. Also, it is not Elena's fault. She only followed me here. I am not blaming anyone here. Alaric noticed that she didn't react much after seeing the slaves. From the looks of it, she must have seen such cases in Rivad too. On the other hand, Elena looked uneasy as she observed the women inside the slave wagon. You do not need to worry about me, Alaric. Hershey smiled gently at him. While they were conversing, Roy squinted his eyes. This noblewoman should be Lord Alaric's fiancée, Hershey Paxley. She is indeed as beautiful as the rumors say. He dared not look at her for too long to avoid being misunderstood. He might have a protector, but he didn't want to carelessly offend Alaric and House Silversword. Sir Roy, this is my fiancée, Hershey Paxley. I am sure you have heard of her. Alaric's voice drifted into his ears, pulling him from his stray thoughts. Roy put on a surprised look. Oh, my. What a great honor to see you, my lady. My name is Roy, a merchant from Harrow. Hershey didn't give much of a response and just nodded her head. It was obvious from her expression that she didn't have a good impression of this slave trader. I would like to buy all those women from you, Sir Roy. Please name your price. Hershey suddenly said, making everyone feel surprised. Hershey. Alaric raised an eyebrow, but he decided to wait and see what she was up to. Roy was taken aback. It took him a few seconds to gather his thoughts. He gave Hershey an apologetic look as he replied. I'm sorry, my lady, but I can't sell all of these women to you. As I have told Lord Alaric, most of these women will be sold to an old client of mine. I hope you understand my situation. This. Hershey hesitated. She could already guess what those women would experience once they fell into someone's hands. She turned her gaze to Alaric and asked. Is there really no other way to help them? Alaric sighed helplessly. She had a gentle heart. She was just like what he had remembered about her from his past life. He looked at Roy and asked. How much is your client willing to pay for those women? Roy frowned and hesitated for a moment before he replied. Including those two red-haired siblings, my client is willing to pay 2,500 gold coins. Alaric wasn't surprised by the price. The amount was within his expectations. The reason for the high value was the red-haired siblings. Just the two of them alone should be worth 2,000 gold coins. This is already a discounted price. To be honest, the price would be more expensive if I sell them in the central region. Roy added. Female slaves were more expensive when sold to the right people. Many depraved nobles would be willing to pay a lot of money to get their hands on these women, especially the younger and more beautiful ones. How about this? I will give you 10 fatal-grade beast soul crystals in exchange for those women. Alaric had a huge surplus of beast soul crystals and he had habitually brought a few of them since they were much easier to carry than bringing loads of gold coins. 10 beast soul crystals? Roy's mouth went agape when he heard this ridiculous offer. The cheapest piece of beast soul crystal could be sold for 500 gold coins. 10 such crystals were worth over 5,000 gold coins. Is House Silversword already this rich? They must have gotten these crystals from the orc raid more than a month ago. The price Alaric had quoted was more than double what his client was willing to pay. Can I see the beast soul crystals first before I make my decision? Roy tried to remain calm, but he couldn't hide the look of greed in his eyes. Alaric sent Hershey a sneaky thumbs up before he replied to Roy. No problem. He then sent a signal to Rasmus. The latter was nearby so he had heard their conversation. When Alaric gave him a signal, he immediately understood his lord's intentions. After a while, Rasmus handed a small sack to Alaric. My lord. Thank you. Alaric tossed the sack to Roy, who caught it with trembling hands. The fat merchant opened the sack and inspected the beast soul crystals inside. These aren't beast soul crystals from orcs. This texture, this color. I'm pretty sure these are beast soul crystals of goblin warriors. He narrowed his eyes, but he didn't dare probe where Alaric had gotten these crystals. These are indeed fatal-grade beast soul crystals. Are you really willing to pay this much for those women, my lord? He looked at Alaric dubiously. Do I look like I am joking? Alaric frowned. No, please don't misunderstand, my lord. I only want to confirm it. Roy laughed awkwardly. So what is your decision, Sir Roy? Alaric stared deeply at him. Roy took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment while contemplating his answer. 10 beast soul crystals, this is more than what those women are worth. I can't let this slip by. After a full minute of silence, he opened his eyes. I have decided, my lord. I accept your offer. Hearing this, Alaric's lips curved upward. Good. You made a great decision, Sir Roy. He tapped the fat merchant's shoulder, which almost made the latter fall to the ground. Damn. This guy is too strong. Is this the strength of an elite knight? Does this mean he can kill me with a single slap if he wants to? Chapter 229, Lyanna. Roy shook his head and removed the unnecessary thoughts from his mind. My lord, thank you for doing business with me. You have given me more than what I need, so you can get the slave wagons as a bonus. Amen. Alaric was pleased. This guy was indeed an experienced merchant. He knew how to make his clients feel happy. The only problem was he was too greedy for money. These are the keys, my lord. It is labeled so it won't be difficult for you to unlock the chains on those women. Roy handed him a set of keys. Alaric took the keys from him and handed them to Rasmus. Remove the shackles on those women. Yes, my lord. Rasmus nodded. Before he left to do his task, he sent Roy a glare. Roy didn't mind the look he was given. He was already used to this. He had even received numerous death threats, but he had overcome all those problems. Seeing that Alaric was no longer interested in chatting with him, Roy took this as his cue to leave. He bowed to Alaric. I won't disturb you any further, my lord. I shall take my leave now. Please excuse me. Alaric nodded and waved his hand indifferently. Be careful on your way back, Sir Roy. I will, my lord. Roy chuckled. He then went back to his carriage and instructed his group to set off. After they left, Alaric's subordinates freed the women from their shackles. However, none of the women expressed gratitude. Instead, they stared at their new lord with fear and numbness. Thank you for accepting my unreasonable request. Hershey looked at Alaric with gratitude. There weren't plenty of men who would be willing to pay 5,000 gold coins to save a bunch of female slaves. Alaric gently held her hand and smiled. There is no need to thank me, but what do you plan to do with those women? If you set them free, some of them might be captured by slave traders again. He reminded her with a stern look. Hershey nodded. I know. How about you let them work in your estate? I will handle everything if you give me your approval. She nervously observed his reaction. House Paxley was still in financial crisis, so she couldn't bring these women to their estate. Giving jobs to these women would cost a lot of money, so this was another unreasonable request. She couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Alaric embraced her when he saw her expression. There is no need to feel embarrassed, Hershey. We will be family soon, and I am certain that you can help me manage our family's business with your skills. Do you trust me that much? Hershey muttered. Of course. Alaric replied without hesitation. In his past life, Hershey was the main reason why House Silversword didn't fall despite its terrible financial situation. She used her wits to revive the family's businesses, and she did all that with limited resources too. While they were chatting, Rasmus approached them and reported. My lord, one of the female slaves wants to speak with you. Alaric raised an eyebrow. When he turned his head, he saw a tall and valiant woman standing behind Rasmus. It was the older one of the two red-haired siblings. She looked nervous, but she gathered her courage to stare at Alaric. What is your name? Alaric asked with a calm tone. Rasmus immediately stepped back to give them room to speak. The red-haired lady lowered her head and responded. My lord, my name is Lyanna G. Just call me Lyanna, my lord. Alaric noticed that she didn't want to use her family name, but this was understandable. They had been abandoned by their father and were even sold off to pay off his gambling debts. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes, no. Alaric wanted to see her stats, so he clicked, yes. Lyanna Gillings, Knight, EXP, 401/500. Potential, B. Traits, Swordsmanship, D. Close Combat, D. Archery, E. Hunting, E. Horseback Riding, D. Dagger Mastery, F. Poison Mastery, F. Strength, 84. Stamina, 82. Agility, 90. Vitality, 71. Endurance, 77. Mana, 56. For a knight, her stats were above average. Her attributes were just a bit weaker than Aldrin's, but compared to most knights, she was already better and younger too. Dame Lyanna, what do you want to tell me? She was more powerful than he had anticipated, so Alaric was willing to hear her thoughts. Lyanna kneeled before him and pleaded. My lord, I am willing to offer you my body, but please let go of my sister. Hershey and Elena gasped at her words. Alaric didn't expect her to make this request. He shook his head and replied in a calm voice. Your worries are unnecessary. I did not plan on enslaving you girls. If you do not mind, how about working for me instead, as free people? You will be given salary, accommodation, and even rest days. What do you think? Hearing this, Lyanna was flabbergasted. She was already prepared to use her purity in exchange for her sister's freedom. Alaric's response was outside her expectations. My lord, do you mean it? She asked in a quivering tone. This man had already bought them from the slave trader, but he was actually giving them the choice to work as free people. She had never seen an unusual noble like him before. I accept your offer, my lord. I want to work for you. Thank you very much. She couldn't help but sob. She had been worried about her sister's fate all this time. Alaric smiled and went to help her stand up. Dame Lyanna, we will talk about your contract later. For now, please help me convince those women. My offer also applies to them. Lyanna widened her eyes. She thought that he was only giving them special treatment because they were more useful, but it turned out that the man before her was more noble than she had thought. Right away, my lord. Chapter 230, Emma. When Lyanna informed the women about Alaric's offer, they were overjoyed. They had already mentally prepared themselves to be abused, but it seemed like Aru had other plans for them. Some girls even kneeled before Alaric to express their gratitude, but he quickly helped them up. My lord, this is my younger sister, Emma. Lyanna eagerly introduced her younger sister to Alaric. Emma lowered her head. It could be seen that she was still wary of him. It was probably her distrust towards strangers, but Alaric didn't mind this. Just call me Emma, my lord. Alaric nodded with a faint smile. All right, Emma. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes, no. Alaric clicked, yes. Emma Gillings, One-Ringed Beast Soul Master, EXP, 7/500. Potential, A. Integrated Monster Trait, Photographic Memory, B. Traits, Business Management, B. Horseback Riding, F. Quick Learner, A. Archery, C. Swordsmanship, F. Strength, 15. Stamina, 11. Agility, 14. Vitality, 19. Endurance, 12. Mana, 190. Alaric was a bit disappointed when he saw her attributes. Her mana was definitely high, but the rest of her attributes were ridiculously low for a one-ringed beast soul master. She has business management and quick learner traits, so she can help me manage the new businesses we started. He had been searching for someone with a good talent for business. He did find a few people with the business management trait, but all of them already had affiliations. Now, he had finally discovered the person he was looking for. What kind of work do you want to do? Alaric probed while looking at the young girl. Emma hesitated upon hearing this. She didn't respond immediately and looked at her sister to seek her advice. Seeing this, Lyanna gave her an encouraging look. Emma turned her gaze back to Alaric and said, "My lord, I can handle administrative tasks. That's what I did back home." She sounded hurt when she mentioned home. "I see." Alaric didn't give much of a reaction. He already somewhat expected this answer from her when he saw her traits. The red-haired siblings nervously observed his reaction. They were worried that Alaric would place Emma in the army because of her identity. "That works too. It just happens that I need someone to help me manage my businesses. We will talk about this again later since I cannot bring you ladies with me to Vale." Alaric's words made the siblings feel relieved. "Thank you, my lord." Emma bowed her head gratefully. Alaric simply smiled. After taking care of the women, he instructed Franklin and a few warriors to escort them back to the estate. The group separated soon afterward, one headed back to North Pine Town, while the other one went to Vale. Inside the carriage, Alaric noticed Elena's gloomy face. "Are you all right, Elena?" he asked. Elena jolted upon hearing his voice. "It's nothing, my lord." She forced a smile. "I just think that I was lucky to meet you when I was still young. Otherwise, I would have experienced the same thing as those women did," she added. Hearing this, Hershey grabbed her shoulder and hugged her. She didn't say anything, but her warmth was enough to comfort Elena. Alaric was happy to see them getting closer. He didn't disturb them and just looked at the scenery outside the window. "Lyanna, are we really going to work for Lord Alaric from now on?" Emma whispered to her older sister. Lyanna shook her head and replied, "We have no choice. Besides, Lord Alaric isn't an evil man. I think we can trust him." Emma nodded in agreement. "That's true. He freed us and even offered us jobs. No other man would have done the same. If only our father was half as good as him." Her voice trailed off when she saw her elder sister giving her a cold gaze. "Don't mention that person again. Do you understand?" Emma shrank her neck as she replied with a hum. "Amen." While the two were chatting, someone's voice suddenly drifted into their ears. "You all are lucky to encounter Lord Alaric." The women turned their heads toward the person who had spoken. It was the dark-skinned warrior who seemed to be the leader of their escort team. Noticing their curious gazes, Franklin chuckled. "Just like you all, I was a slave. I was a gladiator to be exact. I worked for a man named Dexter. He was the leader of an underground organization in Riverwake." Franklin didn't know why, but he suddenly felt like telling them about his story. Perhaps he saw his past from them and it evoked his sympathy. The ladies were immersed in his story. No one expected that this respectable warrior was actually once a gladiator. This made them feel deep admiration for Alaric. "Lord Alaric is a capable leader and a kind man. I hope that you won't betray him. Otherwise, my blade will cut your neck," Franklin jokingly said. The women nervously laughed when they heard his words. They believed that he was capable of doing it. Lyanna tugged her younger sister's clothes and asked, "Emma, do you remember that mountain we discovered near Harrow?" "Of course." Emma raised an eyebrow when she mentioned this. "That's where we found those strange-looking flowers." Suddenly, she realized what her older sister was thinking. "Wait. Don't tell me you are." Lyanna made a shushing gesture. She looked around them to make sure that no one was listening. "I'm thinking of reporting that discovery to Lord Alaric." Emma frowned. "But Lyanna, we don't even know if those flowers are valuable. If Lord Alaric goes there and finds out that it's not worth anything, he might think that we are untrustworthy." Lyanna leaned against the wagon and looked at the bright sky above them. The warriors had removed the metal bars from the slave wagons so she could now see the sky without any hindrance. Emma, this could be our chance to repay Lord Alaric. I will take full responsibility, she muttered with determination. Chapter 231, The Obscure Restaurant in Mileton. The Garden of Roses was located within the territory of Baron Argus, in the district of Mileton. The trip this time was unplanned, but Argus still greeted them at the entrance of Mileton when he heard that they were coming. Welcome to Mileton, my lord and my lady. The old baron welcomed them together with his adopted son and a few of his most trusted subordinates. This is my adopted son, Terry. He is not a warrior, but he is very talented in business and managing the household. When I am not around, he does most of the administrative duties. The old baron proudly introduced his adopted son. It was a middle-aged man with curly brown hair. His looks weren't impressive, but he had a kind aura that would make one feel drawn to him. I have heard a lot about you, my lord. It's an honor to finally meet you. Terry lowered his head. Oh, my. I didn't know that Lord Argus actually has someone as talented as you in his. The group exchanged greetings and some nice words. My lord, can you tell me why you have come to my small territory? Argus could no longer hold back his curiosity. Everyone glanced at Alaric, patiently waiting for his response. Alaric scratched his head, seemingly embarrassed, but he still told them the truth. To tell you the truth, we came here to visit the Garden of Roses. Argus' face relaxed upon hearing this. Oh. So it is because of that. You made a great decision, my lord. I do not want to boast, but Garden of Roses is considered one of the most popular tourist destinations in the Empire. He proudly remarked. I am well aware of that. Alaric chuckled. He had never seen Argus this enthusiastic before. The old man gave them some information about the Garden of Roses which the public didn't know. He also told them which spots were the best for sightseeing. Look at me and my manners. The old baron exclaimed apologetically. He was so excited that he didn't notice the time. I will not disturb your visit any further, my lord. If you need anything, do not hesitate to inform me. Please enjoy your visit to the Garden of Roses. The group bid each other farewell before they separated. Argus was smart enough to give them the privacy they needed. Following them would only annoy Alaric, so he tactfully excused himself. I didn't think Lord Argus could speak like that to someone. Hershey chuckled, unable to believe what she had witnessed. The old baron had visited Ryvad on multiple occasions, but he had never displayed such humility in front of her father. Alaric laughed and shook his head. Please do not misunderstand him. Lord Argus may look strict, but he is a kind person. Hershey didn't agree or disagree with him. She only chuckled in response. The group took a short stop to a not-so-famous restaurant for a simple meal. They chose this place since it was relatively obscure and far from the noisy areas of the district. Hershey was wearing a veil to cover her face, but even though her face was covered, the crowd was still mesmerized by her presence. Her footsteps and her light movements were full of grace, making the men inside the restaurant fall into a trance. Who is that young lady? I bet she is very beautiful. Man, look at that graceful movement. I guess she is from a noble house. Look at the young maid next to her. She is also cute. Hold on. I think I recognize those crests. One perceptive guest was shocked when he realized their identities. I'm pretty sure that is the crest of House Paxley. As for the other one, that's definitely House Silversword. That young warrior with silvery white hair, that must be Lord Alaric. There was a commotion when the guests discovered their identities, but Alaric and the others ignored the crowd of onlookers. They booked a private room and ordered a bunch of dishes. While waiting for their food, Alaric and the two ladies went to the balcony of their room and observed the quiet street down below. I wish every day would be as peaceful as today. Elena suddenly said with a sigh. Hershey patted her back and nodded in agreement. Alaric didn't want to dampen the mood, so he didn't say anything, but he knew it was impossible. The empire was about to erupt into civil war, and the neighboring countries were eyeing them like vultures, waiting for the opportune moment to invade. Not to mention the vast unknown filled with untold dangers. Peace is difficult to achieve, but I promise that I will not allow anyone to harm you too. Alaric thought to himself. At this moment, there was a series of knocks on the door. It must be our food. Alaric tapped their shoulders and asked the ladies to head back to their seats. The servers came in to serve their food. Oh, wow! The food looks amazing! Alaric exclaimed in surprise. He didn't expect much from the food here since it was a relatively obscure restaurant. However, it seemed like he had underestimated their ability. Out of curiosity, he pulled one of the servers and asked, "Can you tell me who the owner is?" The server hesitated for a moment, but knowing Alaric's identity, he decided to tell him what he knew. "I'm not so sure about it, my lord. I only saw the owner once and she was wearing a mask at that time. I don't even know her name." Alaric raised an eyebrow. There are only two reasons why someone would wear a mask. One is that they are trying to hide the scars on their faces. And the second reason is that they don't want their identities to be revealed. Alaric was intrigued by this information. He felt that there was something unusual about the owner. He tried to ask the other servers, but they all gave him the same response. Interesting. Chapter 232, Who Are You Trying to Fool, Barbara? After eating their food, they stepped out of the private room and left the restaurant. Alaric turned around and looked at the restaurant's signboard. Mystic Cloud. Even her naming sense sounds mysterious. "What's wrong, my lord?" Elena's voice drifted into his ears. Alaric smiled faintly. "Maybe we will revisit this place, so I want to remember its name." Elena didn't think much of his response, but Hershey seemed to have noticed the look of curiosity in his eyes. Alaric walked toward the carriage and made a "this way" gesture. "Let us get going." The two ladies smiled and stepped inside the carriage. The next moment, the group left and headed to the Garden of Roses. Before they even arrived at their intended destination, they noticed an increase in the number of pedestrians. The road was also filled with carriages heading to the same location. "It truly deserves to be one of the best tourist attractions in the empire," Alaric remarked as he looked at the drove of people walking along the streets. The two ladies nodded in agreement. Soon, they reached the end of the road, which was also the entrance to the Garden of Roses. Alaric sensed the presence of many powerful warriors in the vicinity. He even discovered an elite knight roaming around, ensuring the safety of the visitors. It looks like the officials of Vale put a lot of effort into maintaining the security here. There are also warriors from Lord Argus' household. The security was very tight. There were warriors patrolling in pairs every 100 meters. With the security of the place, even a big criminal organization would think twice before attacking this place. Alaric didn't bring the rest of the escort team inside the Garden of Roses. He only brought Galliner and left the others at the entrance to wait for them. Galliner didn't stay close to them. He followed them at a certain distance, just enough for him to react if something unexpected happened. "So this is the Garden of Roses." Elena's eyes widened when he saw the vast expanse of colorful roses. It was so vast that she couldn't see the end of it. "From what I know, the first owner of this garden was from a common family." Hershey, the walking encyclopedia, displayed her knowledge once more. He planted 10,000 roses on the barren land near his home in memory of his late wife. The officials of the city were moved by his story, so they allowed him to use the barren land to plant more roses for his wife, which he did. As the years went by, the number of roses grew to 100,000. Alaric and Elena were engrossed by the story. The man's story made them realize that love could truly make someone do even the most impossible things. When the man died, his children continued his legacy. They turned the flower garden created by their father into a tourist spot, and that was how the Garden of Roses came to be. Hershey smiled after telling them this story. "Who owns the garden now?" Alaric asked. Hershey glanced at him and replied. The garden is still owned by the original owner's family. The one who manages everything is his great-grandson, a man named. Alaric and Elena asked her a few more questions which she answered one by one. How did you know all this information, my lady? Elena stared at her with awe. Hershey was the next person she admired after Alaric. Looking at Elena's curious face, Hershey felt the urge to pinch her cheeks. I have read about it in a book. If you want, I can give you that book. Teary-eyed, Elena rubbed her burning cheeks. Ow! Ow! While chuckling, Hershey patted Elena's head. How about we read it together? Really? Elena's eyes lit up. She wanted to be a knowledgeable lady like Hershey, so she was excited to hear this. Of course. Unknowingly, Alaric became a backdrop. He intentionally slowed down his pace, but the two ladies didn't even notice. With an awkward smile, Alaric shook his head. I am happy to see them getting along, but why do I feel like I am not needed here? Thinking about this, he couldn't help but laugh in amusement. The trio spent almost 5 hours touring the Garden of Roses, and they only left when the sky was about to turn dark. Since it was already nighttime, the group decided to find a nearby inn. Coincidentally, they found a suitable accommodation near the restaurant called Mystic Cloud. The inn they found was only a few blocks away from the restaurant, which made it convenient since Alaric wanted to have dinner there. When Alaric's group arrived at the restaurant, the staff were startled. They didn't expect them to return for dinner. Alaric booked the same private room, but this time, they ordered a different batch of dishes. A moment later, the staff came to the private room to serve their food. Surprisingly, the restaurant manager came with them. It was a middle-aged woman dressed in common attire. She didn't look impressive at first glance, but Alaric felt that there was something unusual about her. My lord, I apologize for not greeting you so soon. I am the manager of this restaurant. You can just call me Barbara. The middle-aged restaurant manager bowed after introducing herself. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes, no. Alaric exchanged greetings with Barbara while secretly using his appraisal trait on her. Linda Barnolay, Transcendent Knight, EXP, 3721/5000. Potential, B. Traits, Close Combat, A. Horseback Riding, A. Hunting, A. Tracking, A. Disguise, S. Assassination, A. Camouflage, B. Torture, B. Chain Mastery, S. Strength, 237. Stamina, 222. Agility, 250. Vitality, 160. Endurance, 150. Mana, 176. Barbara? Who do you think you are trying to fool here? Alaric was alarmed when he saw her attributes and traits. All her traits were focused on assassination, and she also had a strange weapon choice. There is actually someone who uses chains as a weapon? Alaric was stunned by her unusual weapon choice, but what made him even more surprised was her high mastery of this weapon. Linda Barnolay. Who the hell is this woman? Alaric tried to remember all the warriors in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard, but he couldn't remember anyone with the same name as her. How is this possible? The imperial family was the one who managed the ranking in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. They had a huge network of information, and practically everything that happened in the empire was reported to them. Then, how did this woman remain undiscovered all this time? Disguise. It must be this trait. Alaric tried to remain calm as he interacted with the restaurant manager. The only thing that made him feel safe was Galiner's presence. If he wasn't here, Alaric wouldn't have dared to have a casual conversation with this suspicious woman. Alaric took a subtle glance at Galiner and saw that he was staring intently at the middle-aged woman. Galiner must have sensed her strength too. Alaric took a deep breath. If she is hiding her identity, why did she come out to see me and risk exposing herself? Alaric had so many questions, but he knew that it wasn't the right time to ask. While he was immersed in his thoughts, the restaurant manager handed him a jade box. This is a gift from the owner, my lord. She wanted to give it to you in person, but she is occupied by some matters, so she asked me to send it to you instead. Alaric was taken aback. He absent-mindedly took the jade box. He only regained his senses when he saw what was inside. This is... Inside the jade box was an intricately crafted piece of jewelry. It was a bracelet meticulously decorated with many valuable gemstones. Furthermore, Alaric also discovered that it was a relic-level item engraved with an ability. Upon seeing the look of surprise on his face, the middle-aged woman chuckled. You have guessed it right, my lord. That is a relic engraved with a healing ability. Alaric and Hershey were shocked, while Elena revealed a look of confusion. This is too valuable. How could I accept this gift? Alaric suddenly felt the bracelet getting heavier in his hand. Why would a stranger give him a relic? Was it to bootlick him? No. Alaric wasn't foolish enough to believe that it was the case. He felt that there was an underlying reason, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The middle-aged woman who had introduced herself as the restaurant owner waved her hand anxiously. Please accept it, my lord. Otherwise, the owner might punish me. She revealed a troubled look. Alaric was almost convinced by her acting. If he hadn't seen her attributes, he might have been fooled by her. Then can you tell who she is? He probed. The restaurant manager's face suddenly turned serious. She stared deeply at him and shook her head. I cannot answer that, my lord. Please forgive me. Alaric frowned. What is going on here? Chapter 233, The Letter. My lord, I know you have many questions, but the time is not ripe yet. The truth will eventually be revealed. The restaurant manager said, her face looking serious. Alaric was so confused by her cryptic words that he didn't know how to respond. If you encounter a problem that you can't solve, please find me here. I will do my best to help you. The restaurant manager didn't wait for his response and stood up. She then excused herself and left without turning back. After she left, Galliner immediately came to his side and whispered. My lord, that woman is a transcendent knight. I know, Alaric replied with an absent-minded look. He was still processing everything that had happened. She also disguised herself, so that was definitely not her real face, Galliner added with certainty in his tone. Alaric nodded. He saw Linda's traits, so he also believed that the face she showed earlier was only a disguise. Do you want me to investigate her background? Galliner asked. Alaric hesitated for a moment before he shook his head. Whoever she is working for, I do not think they have bad intentions, so let us just leave them be. However, I want you to send a few warriors to watch the restaurant, and they must report to me if they discover anything significant. Galliner acknowledged his command with a nod. Yes, my lord. The food was great, but Alaric wasn't able to enjoy the taste because his mind was occupied with different things. As they headed back to the inn, Hershey held his hand and asked. Is there anything wrong? You look like you have a lot on your mind. Alaric glanced at her and smiled faintly. It is nothing serious. I am just wondering who sent me this bracelet. He showed her the bracelet he got from the restaurant manager. Hershey looked at the bracelet and replied. You mentioned earlier that this is a relic. Why would someone who hasn't met you give you something that valuable? This was also bugging her, and she felt that everything was suspicious. Alaric shook his head. I have no idea. The group arrived at the inn a moment later. The ladies were tired from the trip, so they rested early after a short conversation. Meanwhile, Alaric couldn't sleep because of what had happened. He paced around his room, thinking of all the people he had met in his past life. However, no one seemed to match the person who had sent him the bracelet. Just who could it be? The next morning, Alaric was awoken by the knocking on his door. He opened his tired eyes and realized that it was already morning. When he gathered his senses, he found out that he had slept on the chair. Alaric stood up and cracked his muscles, which had turned stiff from the bad sleeping posture. Wait a moment, he said as he headed to the door. Creak. Standing behind the door was Elena. "My lord, it's almost time for breakfast. Lady Hershey didn't want me to disturb your sleep, so I didn't come to wake you up." Alaric was surprised. "So it is already that late? You guys must have waited for me. I am sorry." He gently brushed Elena's hair with an apologetic smile on his face. "I slept late last night because of what happened at the restaurant." Alaric sighed as he followed Elena downstairs. The group ate breakfast together. After eating, they left the inn and headed to Argus' estate to bid him farewell. This was his territory after all, so it wouldn't be good to leave right away without informing him. The old baron welcomed them with open arms and he invited him to visit his mansion. Alaric wasn't in a hurry to leave, so he accepted his invitation. "How was your trip to Garden of Roses, my lord?" Argus asked as he brought them to his study room. "It was great. It truly deserves to be one of the best tourist spots in the empire," Alaric exclaimed. "Haha. That is good. This is my study." Argus led them inside his study. He proudly introduced the paintings he had pasted on the wall. Alaric wasn't an expert on this, so he only gave the old baron some praise. Luckily, Hershey was there to save him. She eagerly discussed with the old baron regarding the paintings. She was very well read about their history, and she could even tell who had painted them without Argus having to say anything. The old baron was full of praise for her knowledge. They talked about this for a good 30 minutes before Alaric found the right time to ask him something. "Lord Argus, do you know anything about the restaurant, Mystic Cloud?" Argus' face turned serious when he mentioned this name. He told his servants to leave before he replied. "They have not been here for long, my lord." He took a short pause and leaned forward, closer to Alaric. "They constructed the restaurant a few years ago. Their business was very successful and they managed to get many people to try their food. We lost a lot of profit from the restaurant business because of them, so I sent my people to investigate them. However," his expression suddenly turned cold. "The people I sent returned with injuries. I did not give up on the investigation, so I sent stronger warriors, but the same thing happened to them. That time, the people at the restaurant sent me a letter telling me not to investigate them again." Alaric wasn't surprised by this. They had a transcendent knight as a restaurant manager, so it wasn't surprising for a group of knights to be beaten up. "I was furious when I received that letter, so I sent 2 of my elite knights together with 20 warriors to cause trouble, but you know what happened?" The old baron revealed a look of helplessness when he mentioned this. "The 2 elite knights I sent were beaten up, while the warriors who had followed them were thrown out of the restaurant naked." Alaric almost laughed when he heard this. Knowing the old baron, he must have been worked up at that time. "Since then, I no longer sent my people to investigate the restaurant, but I did something to make them lose a lot of customers." This time, the old baron chuckled with a victorious look. Alaric finally understood why Mystic Cloud had few customers despite their food being so good. It turned out that it was actually the handiwork of the old baron. "So you do not know anything about the owner?" Alaric was a bit disappointed, but he didn't show it to his face. Argus shook his head helplessly. "I gave up on knowing who the owner is after I failed to investigate them 3 times. Alaric no longer asked him anything about the restaurant. They talked for another hour about random topics before Alaric bid him farewell. The group didn't leave Vale immediately. It has been a long time since Alaric last visited the orphanage, so he decided to give them a visit. Meanwhile, in the capital city, Cadera stood a glorious castle that towered over all the other buildings. It was sitting on top of a hill, surrounded by tall walls that served as shields to prevent unwanted people from entering. The castle was protected by powerful warriors, so even if there were intruders, they would be dealt with immediately. At this moment, a black falcon descended on the castle, somehow evading the perception of the guards. However, this was no ordinary bird, but a disaster-grade monster. The black falcon gracefully landed on an opened window of one of the over 100 rooms in the castle. "Knighty, you are back." A charming and melodious voice echoed from inside the room. The black falcon revealed a tamed look upon hearing this voice. It made a soft chirping sound as it flew in. A blonde-haired woman dressed in a red dress with gold highlights raised her fragile left arm for the bird to land on. "Be careful. You might leave a scratch on me again," she told the bird as she imbued mana into her arm. The falcon made a sound of protest, making the woman chuckle in amusement. She noticed that there was a letter attached to the falcon's leg. "It seems like Linda has fulfilled her mission." She smiled as she took the letter and unrolled it. The blonde-haired woman read the contents of the letter and was relieved upon reading what was written. "I am sure Her Highness will be happy to see this." She rolled the letter and put it inside her pocket. "Nighty, how about you follow me somewhere? I need to send this letter to someone." The black falcon tilted its head with a look of confusion. The blonde-haired woman chuckled. "You cannot disobey me anyway." She stepped out of her room and headed to the topmost floor of the castle. More warriors were patrolling this floor and their auras made the blonde-haired woman feel nervous. She stopped in front of the last door where 2 warriors were standing guard. The pressure they exuded was so intense that even the disaster-grade black falcon revealed a look of fear. "What business do you have here, Your Highness?" one of the warriors spoke. The blonde-haired woman furrowed her eyebrows and replied with an annoyed tone. "I just came here to visit my aunt." "Is there anything wrong with that?" "You have 30 minutes, Your Highness." The 2 warriors stared at each other before they allowed her to enter. The blonde-haired woman snorted as she entered the room. Upon stepping in, she saw a woman with long white hair standing by the window with a melancholic face. "Aunt," she called out. Chapter 234, Visiting the Newly Renovated Orphanage. The white-haired woman turned around and smiled. "Hello, Irish. Aunt, were you expecting my arrival?" Irish pouted as she approached the white-haired woman. "Well, it is not difficult to guess." The white-haired woman chuckled, looking amused at her reaction. She then beckoned to Irish and pointed to a seat as she asked, "Anyway, did Linda send you a letter?" Irish took her seat and nodded. "Yes. You can read it for yourself." She handed her the letter. The white-haired woman revealed a look of anticipation as she took the letter from her. Irish watched her aunt read the letter with a look of sympathy. Aunt Jade must have felt so lonely living alone at the top of this castle. I wish she could be reunited with her family soon. She had a close relationship with her aunt since she was a child. Jade was like a second mother to her and she was even closer to her than her real mother. They learned to trust each other after years of interactions. It was also how she learned about Jade's situation. When she first heard about this from Jade, she was so shocked that she couldn't believe it. The Emperor's sister actually had a son with a countryside baron. It was something that could shake the entire empire if news of it leaked out to the public. Since then, she visited her aunt every day, deepening their relationship even further. "So he took my gift." A smile filled with motherly love hung on her face after she read the letter. Looking at her aunt's joyful smile, Irish grabbed Jade's hands and asked with her eyebrows furrowed, "Aunt, do you want to see your son?" Jade quivered upon hearing her words and she was silent for a moment. After a long pause, she shook her head and responded with a despondent tone. "You should know that it is impossible." Hearing this, Irish bit her lower lip. She hated how powerless she was to change the situation. The Emperor had banned her aunt from leaving the castle. She once suggested her aunt to escape, but Jade revealed a scared expression when she mentioned that. She tried asking her aunt what made her so afraid, but she never told her the truth. Looking at her niece's dejected face, Jade gently grabbed her shoulders and embraced her. "Stop worrying about me, Irish. Knowing that my son is doing well is already more than enough for me. Let us not make things even more complicated. Besides..." Jade's eyes suddenly flashed with intense coldness. "I am only waiting for an opportunity and that moment will come when the fight for succession will begin." "Besides what?" Irish glanced at her aunt with confusion. Jade shook her head and replied with a faint smile. "It is nothing. I just misspoke." She wasn't just idling in the castle all this time. She had been secretly nurturing her own force outside, and even Irish wasn't aware of this. Just a little bit more. Lucas. Alaric, just wait for me. Oh wow. Is this still the same orphanage that I grew up in? Rasmus exclaimed when he saw the newly renovated orphanage. It was no longer the decrepit building that he was used to, but a grand mansion with a vast orchard next to it. There were even warriors patrolling nearby, ensuring the safety of the orphanage. Rasmus knew that this was all because of Alaric. He was so emotional that he couldn't articulate his feelings. In the end, he could only give Alaric a grateful hug, an action that stunned everyone. Rasmus only realized his mistake when he sensed the unusual gazes of the people around him. Oh. My lord, this. He was flabbergasted by his own actions. He wanted to explain himself, but he was flustered. Alaric patted him on the shoulder and smiled teasingly. Rasmus, you don't have to apologize. I respect you, but you should know that I'm engaged to Hershey. Rasmus widened his eyes. Just as he was about to respond, everyone erupted into peals of laughter. That's not it. Rasmus could only lower his head in embarrassment. Looking at the teasing eyes of his comrades, Rasmus felt like beating them up. Ha ha ha. That is enough. Alaric waved his hand, seemingly amused by the little prank he played. Let us head in. Under his lead, they walked along the stone pathway to the orphanage. Some of the kids who were tending to the orchard noticed them and quickly notified Josephine, the orphanage's director, and William's wife. By the time they arrived in front of the orphanage, they saw Josephine and William stepping out in a hurry. My lord. William didn't expect his visit, and it was visible from the look of surprise on his face. Sir William, how have you been? Alaric smiled at the old man. He felt a bit emotional when he saw William in great shape. The frail old man he saw back then had now gained some weight and muscles. His graying hair had even turned black. I am doing great, my lord. William was happy to see him. That is good. Alaric smiled. He turned his head to Josephine and gave her a gentle nod. It has been a while, Grandma Josephine. Josephine lowered her head. I'm glad to see you, my lord. They exchanged greetings before William invited them inside the orphanage. How is the situation in the mine, Sir William? Alaric inquired. William's face turned a bit serious when he mentioned this. Everything is going well, my lord. The miners. The old man gave his report, while the others remained silent. I see. That is good to hear. Alaric was pleased with his response. The cold iron deposit was an important resource for House Silversword, and it was also their main source of income other than the soap business. My lord, there is one more thing that I would like to tell you. William took a deep breath to gather his thoughts. He had been thinking about this decision for a long time, and it was finally time to give Alaric an answer. Feel free to tell me what is on your mind, Sir William. Chapter 235, William's Report. William hesitated to speak because of the number of people around, but knowing that everyone was on their side, he eventually opened his mouth. My lord, I would like to follow you. Other than his wife, everyone else was stunned by his words. William was a transcendent knight with no affiliation. A person of his caliber would be treated with respect anywhere in the Empire, but here he was, offering himself to Alaric. Alaric had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Even when William rejected his offer back then, he never gave up on getting this man to work for him. Have you thought it through, Sir William? He asked with a deep look. William nodded with a serious face. Yes, my lord. I have already discussed this with my wife. Alaric frowned. What changed your decision? He didn't want the old man to regret his choice. William recalled the scenes during the orc subjugation and replied with a smile. I just realized that following you might be more meaningful than staying cooped up in the orphanage. My lord, I have already decided. I will devote my remaining life to serving you. He lowered his head and said. I hope you accept my unreasonable request. Hearing his firm resolution, Alaric no longer doubted him. He stood up and tapped the old man's shoulder. "I welcome you with open arms, Sir William." William was overjoyed. He was about to kneel when Alaric stopped him. "There is no need for such formalities, Sir William. We have already been through a lot together, so there is no need to be like this." William nodded and smiled. "Yes, my lord." The atmosphere became livelier after that, and Hershey suggested a celebration which Alaric approved. However, the old man refused their good intentions. He didn't want to trouble them since they were about to get married. The couple understood his intentions, so they no longer insisted on the celebration. Suddenly, William recalled something important. "By the way, my lord." He leaned forward and whispered to him. "I heard from my friends that there have been sightings of barbarian warriors outside of Turtle Fort." This was something that he couldn't disclose to everyone, so he made sure that only Alaric could hear him. Hearing this, Alaric frowned. Turtle Fort was the first line of defense against the creatures of the enchanted woodlands and the barbarian tribes on the adjacent barren land. The barbarians were known for their physical strength and talent for battle. A majority of them also had the gift to become warriors, so almost all of them could fight. The only thing that limited their power was the lack of resources and their low birth rate. Otherwise, they would have long since destroyed Estania and even the neighboring empires. Very rarely would they reveal themselves, and the last time there was an encounter with them was a few decades ago. "Thanks for letting me know. I will send someone to look into it." Alaric didn't remember anything like this in his past life. The barbarians never showed up. They remained in the barren lands without showing any signs of aggression toward Estania. So why did they suddenly reveal themselves now? This was something that made Alaric feel alarmed. A few decades ago, the Emperor of Estania and the barbarian king signed a non-aggression pact. It was an event that was recorded in the history books, and almost everyone in the empire knew about it. Did something change again? Alaric pondered deeply. He tried to guess what could have made the barbarians do something this suspicious. Is this related to the fight between the elves and the goblins? He thought, but he wasn't certain if the two events were related. The group stayed at the orphanage for another 30 minutes before they left. Initially, Alaric wanted to take a look at the soap shop, but William's report made him feel a sense of urgency, so he decided to return to North Pine Town and discuss what he had heard with his father. "Why do you look so serious, Alaric? Are you not happy?" Hershey's voice drifted into his ears. She noticed that Alaric had something on his mind. Alaric glanced at her and hesitated. "Alaric, whatever it is, you can share it with me. We will be husband and wife soon, so you can share your troubles with me." She felt shy when she said this. Alaric smiled at her words. She was right. Hershey was no ordinary woman. She was smart and resourceful. Perhaps she could even provide him with useful insights about the situation. Barbarians had been spotted outside of Turtle Fort. He told her what he had heard from William. Hershey was shocked to hear this information. She rubbed her chin and frowned. There are many factors that we can consider as to why this happened. Maybe the barbarians are only searching for something near our borders. It is also possible that they have used up all their resources during winter, so they risked their lives to cross our borders to gather more food and other supplies. However, these are only our speculations. We need to investigate this matter to get more information. Alaric nodded in agreement. "I will inform my father about this." In the headquarters of the Blood River Alliance. "How is the acquisition going?" Liam asked while looking at the documents on his desk. "Boss, we have already talked with the Tyler household and they gave us a favorable response. They are only waiting for you, boss." Hearing this, Liam put down the documents he was reading and lifted his head with a smile. "Is that so?" He stood up and tapped his subordinate's shoulder. "Good job. If things end well, you will be rewarded for your efforts." "Thank you, boss. I will work harder for you." Liam grinned. "Prepare a carriage for me. I need to visit them and finalize this deal." He was finally one step closer to his goal. Chapter 236, Bedeviled Cornelia. Upon returning to the estate, Alaric headed to his father's study to report what he had heard from William. Barbarians. Lucas frowned. He participated in the war with the barbarians a few decades ago. The battle made him famous and cemented his name as one of the strongest in the empire. He dribbled his fingers on the table, seemingly in deep thought. The barbarian king is not a foolish man. Something must have happened for him to send his warriors near our borders. Lucas muttered. I think so too. Alaric nodded in agreement. Lucas stared at his son and said, This matter is indeed suspicious, but let's leave it for the time being. We have more important matters to take care of. Alaric was taken aback. What is it, Dad? He asked with a baffled look. Lucas adjusted his sitting posture before he replied with a smile. What else? Of course, your wedding. Alaric's smile stiffened upon hearing this. He thought that there would be another war. It turned out his father was talking about his wedding. You are right. I cannot let Hershey wait any longer. It is time to announce our wedding date. Alaric responded, feeling a bit emotional. In his past life, he had never married Hershey and just kept her waiting for him. He couldn't let that happen again. Good. She is a good girl, so you must treasure her, my son. Lucas didn't want his son to make the same mistake he did when he was younger. Yes, Dad. I know. Alaric smiled in response. After some small talk, he left Lucas' study. Oh. I forgot to ask Dad if he knows something about Mystic Cloud. Never mind, I will ask him some other time. Alaric clicked his tongue. Although he had told his father that he would focus his attention on his wedding, he still sent Franklin and a few warriors to investigate the barbarian sightings in Turtle Fort. He then went to find the freed women to check on their situation. Greetings, Lord Alaric. My lord. The women revealed looks of excitement upon seeing him. This man had freed them and gave them the chance to turn their lives around. Alaric smiled upon seeing the huge improvement in their complexion. When he had first met them in the slave wagon, they looked listless. Only a few days had passed and they were already filled with energy and hope. I am glad to see you all in good shape. Alaric exchanged greetings and polite remarks with them. He then asked them about their accommodation and their new jobs, to which the women replied with great enthusiasm. Knowing that they were satisfied with their arrangements, Alaric excused himself and was about to head to the training grounds when he heard someone calling him. My lord, please wait a moment. Alaric raised an eyebrow and turned his head. The one who had called him was Lyanna. Lyanna, is there something you need? Alaric had placed special attention on her because of her unique talent. He had specifically given her an important position in the household's army. He noticed that her younger sister Emma was just right behind her. My lord, there is something that I want to tell you. Can we talk somewhere more private? Said Lyanna as she looked around with cautious eyes. Alaric revealed a look of interest. He wondered what she wanted to tell him for her to be this secretive. All right. Follow me. He beckoned to them. Lyanna nodded her head. She then grabbed her younger sister's hand and whispered. Things will be all right. I promise you. Hearing her sister's words, Emma meekly nodded. Amen. Alaric brought the two to his study. Do you want tea or coffee? He asked them as he pointed to the vacant seats adjacent to his desk. There's no need, my lord. Lyanna rejected his offer. Alaric didn't insist. He took his seat and indicated for them to speak. Lyanna took a deep breath to gather her thoughts. She then opened her mouth. My lord, we are from House Gillings, a small merchant family based in Harrow. Our family's business is mostly related to herbs and medicine, so we usually spend our time gathering unique herbs and elixir from the mountains. She gave him a short description of their family before she went straight to the topic. One time when we were searching for herbs, we discovered something unusual. Lyanna described the characteristics of the flowers they had found on a mountain near Harrow. Alaric listened carefully. At first, he didn't treat the matter too seriously, but when he heard her description of the flowers, he thought about one event that happened in his past life. It was the discovery of the ultra-rare elixir, the bedeviled cornelia. This flower looked like a hybrid of a rose because of the similarities in their appearance. However, this was far from the truth. The bedeviled cornelia wasn't an ordinary flower. It was an elixir that fed on corpses. At first, it was only treated as a strange flower, but it was later discovered to be extremely useful in growing monsters. If a wild beast consumed one petal from its flower, it would have a high chance of becoming a monster. If he got his hands on these flowers, he could boost the growth of the saber-fanged wolves. While he was immersed in his thoughts, Lyanna's voice drifted into his ears. "There's just one problem, my lord. There is a pack of powerful monsters in that mountain, and I think they are waiting for those flowers to bloom." "When you discovered those flowers, what was their color?" he asked. The bedeviled cornelia would fully bloom once their petals turned pink. It was also when their boosting properties started to manifest. Lyanna thought for a moment before she replied. "I think they were white with some hint of pinkness." Alaric frowned. This means that those flowers were about to bloom. If that happened, those monsters would definitely devour them. Chapter 237, to Harrow. "I have to get those flowers." "You have done well, Lyanna. Thank you for telling me this information." Alaric smiled faintly. Lyanna and Emma glanced at each other with joy. "My lord, do you know what those strange flowers are?" Lyanna asked curiously. Her family dabbled in herbs and elixirs, but she hadn't heard or seen those flowers. Alaric didn't mind answering her curiosity. He nodded and said, "If I am not wrong, the flowers you saw should be the bedeviled cornelia. It is an elixir that..." He told them what he knew about the flower. The information he gave would be known to the public after the discovery of this flower, but at this moment, only a few families were aware of this information. "No wonder those monsters didn't let us get near those flowers." Lyanna revealed a look of realization. "Can you tell me more about those monsters?" Alaric inquired. "Yes, my lord." Lyanna nodded without hesitation. It was a pack of white-tailed desolate dogs. There were a lot of them, and their alpha is even a disaster-grade monster. We were only lucky enough to escape them. She trembled when she recalled what she had experienced at that time. Alaric rubbed his chin thoughtfully. White-tailed desolate dogs are not that powerful individually. At most, they are as strong as normal goblins, but they are deadly as a group. It seems like I have to send an elite knight for this task, but who should I send this time? House Silversword already had many elite knights, but he had to send a suitable person for this trip. After a few minutes of thinking, Alaric finally made his choice. "Please bring Sir Henry here. I would like to speak with him regarding this matter." "Yes, my lord." Lyanna cupped her fists and left together with her sister. Upon stepping out of his study, Emma breathed a sigh of relief. "Sorry, Lyanna. I was too nervous to speak." Looking at her younger sister's expression, Lyanna shook her head. "It's all right, Emma. However, you must learn to be more confident in yourself. Lord Alaric is a good man, so we must serve him well." Amen. The Gilling sisters went to look for Henry after that small talk. They later found him in the training grounds observing the training of the recruits. "Sir Henry, Lord Alaric is looking for you. He is waiting in his study." Henry narrowed his eyes. "All right. Thanks for letting me know." There was only one reason why Alaric would summon him. It was another mission. A moment later, they stepped inside Alaric's study. "My lord, we have brought Sir Henry." "My lord." Henry lowered his head and cupped his fists in greeting. "Please sit down, Sir Henry. I have a new task for you." Alaric told him about the bedeviled cornelia. The reason why he chose him for this mission was because of Henry's character and ability to make the best decisions. Among the elite knights in the household, he was also the most experienced. "I won't fail you, my lord." Henry expressed his confidence. "Good." Alaric was pleased with his response. "You can bring 2 knights and 10 knight apprentices with you. You are free to choose which warriors to bring." "Yes, my lord." Alaric turned his head to Lyanna and instructed. "Lyanna, I want you to guide Sir Henry's team to the specific location where you found the bedeviled Cornelia." "Yes, my lord." Lyanna answered without hesitation. Alaric gave them a few more reminders before he sent them out. "Now, it is time to discuss my wedding plans with Hershey." He smiled as he stepped out of his study room. 2 days later, Henry's team arrived in Harrow. "I haven't been here for a long time," Rigger remarked as he looked around the familiar yet unfamiliar streets. "It's indeed worthy of being called one of the most prominent cities in the north." Aldrin couldn't hide his surprise. It was his first time here and he was shocked by the prosperous life in the city. "Enough with the chit-chat. We didn't come here to sightsee. We must complete our task as soon as possible." Henry's stern voice drifted into their ears. Alaric had specifically told him the significance of the bedeviled Cornelia, so he didn't want any mistakes. "Yes, sir." Henry turned his gaze to Lyanna, who wore a robe to cover her body. She had some fame in Harrow, so she didn't want anyone to recognize her. "Miss Lyanna, please take us to that mountain." Lyanna nodded. "Please follow me, everyone." The mountain where she found the bedeviled Cornelia was located outside of the city. It was relatively obscure and was surrounded by a dense forest. Other than warriors, only a few brave hunters would dare enter that place. Halfway through their way out of the city, Henry sensed a group of people following them. Reckless fools. He noticed that they weren't that powerful and most of them were just ordinary warriors. However, the person leading them was surprisingly a knight. "Sir, I think someone is following us," Lyanna informed him. Henry didn't expect her to have such sharp senses. She actually noticed them before Rigger and Aldrin did. "I know. Just leave them be. We will deal with them outside the city," Henry muttered in a cold voice. Lyanna felt a chill upon hearing his words. They didn't encounter any accidents on their way out of Harrow. The city's armed guards stopped them for an inspection, but when they identified themselves as warriors of House Silversword, the armed guards no longer dared to stop them. "Those guys are still following us. Just what are they after?" Henry frowned. He thought that the group would stop following them after learning their identity, but he was wrong. The other party continued stalking them. "Stop at once." Everyone frowned when they heard an unfamiliar voice behind them. "You are." Lyanna was stunned when she saw the one who had spoken. Chapter 238, The Former Warriors of House Gillings. In front of them were 15 warriors led by an old knight who looked to be in his late 60s. "Sir Rollins?" Lyanna exclaimed in surprise. The group turned out to be former warriors of House Gillings. "My lady, are you all right? Did these people do something to you?" The old knight was agitated. He wanted to rush in and save Lyanna from her captors, but his instincts told him otherwise. Henry, who was about to command his subordinates to attack, immediately swallowed his words. He turned his gaze to Lyanna and asked with furrowed eyebrows. "What is going on here?" Lyanna quickly stepped forward and gestured at both groups to calm down. "Wait, everyone. This is a misunderstanding." Everyone looked at her and waited for her to explain the situation. Lyanna took a deep breath and said, "Sir Rollins, there is no need to be alarmed. These gentlemen are warriors of House Silversword. They are good people, so there is no need to be hostile towards them. Sir Henry, I apologize on their behalf. These men are former warriors of House Gillings. They acted against my father when he sold us to the slave traders, making them lose their jobs." Lyanna's words made everyone relax their guard. "Lower your weapons, everyone." The old knight named Rollins commanded his subordinates. He then cupped his fists to Henry's group and apologized. "We have misunderstood you. Please forgive us. Please forgive us. Henry shook his head and waved his hand. It's nothing serious, so you guys don't need to worry. The two groups exchanged greetings after that awkward encounter. I'm glad to see you unharmed, my lady. But, where is Miss Emma? Rollins asked with a look of concern. He had watched the Gilling siblings grow up. They were like grandchildren to him, so he was worried about them all this time. Lyanna smiled faintly and replied. My sister is in good hands, Sir Rollins. Lord Alaric of House Silversword took us in and gave us proper care. He didn't force us to become slaves. We voluntarily decided to work for him. Rollins furrowed his eyebrows as he observed her expression. He didn't sense any falsehoods in her words, so he was relieved. He let out a sigh and kneeled before her, his face filled with remorse. It's my fault, my lady. If only I was strong enough, you and Miss Emma wouldn't have to go through all that suffering. The old knight's voice trembled. Please don't blame yourself, Sir Rollins. This isn't your fault. Lyanna pulled the old man up and gently tapped his shoulders. The old man expressed his anger towards the head of House Gillings and also his relief upon knowing that they were safe. Lyanna hesitated for a moment as she asked. What happened to the household after we left? She didn't know why she had asked this question. Was it her lingering attachment to House Gillings, or was it something else? She couldn't tell. Rollins' face darkened as he replied. Jesus Christ, that bastard's back to gambling. I don't know what his bad luck is, but he won all his money back. He used his winnings to hire new fighters and he spent it all on women. That bastard. Ehem. I apologize for the language, my lady. Lyanna was distraught. That bastard. He didn't even bother to look for us. She bit her lower lip to hide her pain, but Rollins could see through her emotions from her little hand movements. She still has these little habits when she is in emotional distress. At this moment, Henry had to cut their reunion short. I apologize, but I have to interrupt your reunion. He looked at Lyanna and said in a stern voice. I hope you understand, Miss Lyanna. We have an important task to deal with. Lyanna immediately lowered her head. I understand, Sir Henry. She then looked at Rollins and said. Please forgive me, Sir Rollins. We need to leave soon. You can wait for me at the... Lyanna set up a meeting place, but Rollins had other plans. My lady, we want to follow you. Lyanna and Henry's group were stunned when they saw the other party kneeling in unison. What is this, Sir Rollins? The old knight lifted his head and stared at her with determination. My lady, there is nothing we want more than to serve you again. Please accept us. This. Lyanna was stumped. She was no longer the young lady of a merchant family, so she didn't know how to respond. While she was hesitating, she felt a big hand tapping on her shoulder. Since they want to follow you, why not accept them? We need loyal people like them in the household. Henry's voice drifted into her ears. But I'm no longer the young lady of House Gillings. Can I really do that? Lyanna hesitated. You are not, but you are now a team leader of House Silversword's armed forces. You can take in these people, but they will be your responsibility, Henry answered. Hearing this, Lyanna became silent. She seemed to be in internal turmoil, so everyone waited patiently for her decision. After a few minutes, she finally made a decision. All right. I will accept you guys, but as I said, I'm no longer the young lady of House Gillings but a warrior of House Silversword. Follow me means following House Silversword. Rollins nodded. It doesn't matter, my lady. We will do anything to serve you. Lyanna helplessly smiled. Their loyalty burdened her. She felt that she still wasn't ready to lead these men. Since you have already decided, prepare to depart immediately. We have a task to complete. Yes, my lady. Rollins and the former warriors of House Gillings answered in unison. Call me team leader Lyanna from now on. Lyanna corrected them. Yes, team leader Lyanna. After dealing with them, she apologetically looked at Henry. I apologize for delaying our task, Sir Henry. Henry grinned at her. It's all right. Chapter 239, Scaling the Mountain. With Rollins' group joining their party, they now have over 25 people. We are almost there, Lyanna told the group. She had already memorized the paths around this forest, so she was certain that their target mountain was close by. After over 2.5 hours of walking, they finally arrived at their destination. It was a mountain that was more than 3,000 meters high. It had steep and rugged terrain, making it impossible for ordinary people to climb up. However, because of the valuable resources hidden in the mountain, many brave men still dared to try their luck. At the foot of the mountain, they could already hear the sharp roars of the beasts living on the mountain. Follow me. The path gets more difficult from here on out, so everyone must be careful. She warned them with a serious voice. The group was composed of veteran warriors, so they had no trouble scaling the mountain. Even Rollins' subordinates who weren't even knight apprentices didn't have a hard time following them. This was because they were already used to traveling such treacherous places. As they climbed higher, the air became thinner. Ordinary people would have felt sick due to the sudden drop in the temperature and the thinning of the air, but these strong-bodied warriors quickly adapted to the high altitude. Suddenly, they encountered a fatal-grade monster. It was one of the common monsters found in this forest, the red-horned spotted deer. This creature looked similar to the spotted deer except for its significantly larger size and its striking curved red horns. Aldrin, make it quick. Henry calmly commanded. Aye, sir. Aldrin chuckled. He took out his spear and confidently walked towards the monster. Lyanna and Rollins' group hadn't seen him fight, so they were a bit worried for his safety, but since the commander had already spoken, they could only watch in silence. Will he be all right? Lyanna thought to herself. She was familiar with this monster since it was quite common in Harrow. It was known for its speed and its incredibly sharp horns. If careless, even a knight would be killed by this monster. Meanwhile, Rigger and the warriors of House Silversword remained calm. They had already fought more powerful creatures, so they didn't think much of this deer. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Aldrin made his move. He pounced toward the creature and thrusted his spear. Whoosh! The red-horned spotted deer made an unusual bleeding sound, but its cry was cut short when Aldrin's spear pierced through its head with a single shot. KSKLH. The creature collapsed to the ground. It twitched for a few seconds before its movement ceased. Lyanna and Rollins' group were stunned. So fast. They never expected that this ordinary-looking man was actually this formidable. In just one move, he managed to slay a red-horned spotted deer. Aldrin, who was oblivious to their shock, bent down to take out the beast's soul crystal inside the monster's corpse. He then looked at Henry and asked, "What should I do with the body, sir?" "Leave it," Henry replied indifferently. Hearing this, Aldrin nodded and handed the beast's soul crystal to him. The trip continued after that short delay. Rollins approached Lyanna and whispered to her ears. "My lady, that man is powerful and he is young too." Lyanna nodded in agreement. "You're right, but there are plenty of warriors stronger than him in the household. Do you see that bald guy over there? He is stronger than Sir Aldrin." Rollins was shocked to hear this. He realized that he was just an ordinary warrior in front of these great men. The group encountered more monsters along the way, but they were quickly eliminated by Henry's subordinates. Rollins' group didn't even need to intervene, making them feel uncomfortable. "Don't think too much about it, Sir Rollins." Lyanna consoled the old knight when she noticed his expression. "I apologize for showing such an embarrassing sight, my lady. I never thought that I would feel this useless during a mission." The old knight shook his head with a wry smile. Another 2 hours passed by before they found what they were looking for. Hidden in the steep slopes of the mountain was a patch of pink flowers that were about to bloom, but before they could celebrate, they suddenly heard the sonorous howls of a large pack of monsters. "It's them. The white-tailed desolate dogs." Lyanna exclaimed when she heard the familiar sound. Henry made a hand gesture as he shouted. Get ready for battle. He took out his sword as he stared in a certain direction. He could sense the presence of the monsters in that location. The warriors immediately unsheathed their weapons upon hearing his words. A few seconds later, the monsters finally revealed themselves. They were almost as tall as an adult human. They had large rounded ears and black spots on their brown fur, but their most noticeable feature was their white tail. Hold on. Why are there so many of them? Lyanna widened her eyes. When she first saw them, there were only about 20 in the pack. However, their current numbers already exceeded 50. Furthermore, there were many fatal grade monsters in their ranks. Facing this many ferocious beasts, Lyanna couldn't help but feel nervous. It wasn't just her, Rollins' group also trembled at the sight of these monsters. Just as they were about to piss their pants, Henry's cold voice erupted. Warriors of House Silversword, crush them. Under Henry's leadership, the warriors immediately charged forward with fearless momentum. Their loud battle cries drowned the howls of the monsters. My lady, what should we do? Rollins asked Lyanna hesitantly. Lyanna gritted her teeth and replied. We will follow them. Move out. She didn't wait for their response. She rushed in to join the battle. Rollins no longer hesitated. He brought his subordinates and instructed them to protect Lyanna. The clashing of blades and claws echoed across the mountaintop, scaring the birds and the wild beasts. Chapter 240, Rollins' Wish. Those warriors. How can they fight these monsters with such calmness? Rollins was surprised to see the warriors of House Silversword display great courage in the face of the ferocious creatures. On the other hand, his subordinates were struggling. Their formation was a total mess, so he had to tie up the loose ends to prevent them from getting killed. Luckily, the young lady is a knight, so she doesn't need much protection. This isn't very pleasant. I need to train these guys. Rollins thought to himself. After killing a fatal grade monster on his own, he took a short break to gather his breathing. It was then that he saw something shocking. At the very front where the battle was the fiercest, he saw Aldrin surrounded by more than 5 fatal grade monsters. The 5 white-tailed desolate dogs attacked him simultaneously, but Aldrin remained calm despite the urgency of his situation. With a short spear and a sword, he slaughtered the monsters one by one. Unbelievable. He felt like he was dreaming when he witnessed that scene. While he was immersed in his thoughts, he heard Lyanna's voice. Sir Rollins, our side is clear. We need to get going and support the front line. He snapped out of his dazed state and nodded. Yes, my lady. Call me team leader. Lyanna reminded him again. Yes, team leader. Rollins awkwardly responded. He was still not used to her new title, so it felt awkward in his tongue. At this moment, the idling disaster-grade alpha dog made a quick dash and charged towards Lyanna's group. Whoosh! Everyone was occupied with their own problems, so no one could offer them a hand. Protect the team leader. Rollins shouted as he dashed in front of Lyanna. There were no hesitations in his actions, as if he was prepared to sacrifice himself to ensure her safety. His subordinates quickly surrounded Lyanna upon hearing his command. Don't let that monster lay a hand on the team leader. Rollins shouted. Meanwhile, Lyanna gathered her mana in preparation for the clash. However, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them and fended off the alpha dog's attack. Clang! A dull clang echoed as the monster's claws were blocked by Henry's sword. The old elite knight grunted and used more strength in his arms to mitigate the impact of the collision. He then imbued more mana into his limbs to keep up with the monster's speed. What followed was an exchange of moves that left Rollins' group flabbergasted. Clang! Clang! Bang! Bang! Elite knight. I wonder if I can advance to that realm. Rollins muttered. It was his wish to one day advance to that realm, but for someone his age, he knew that this was impossible. He had already exhausted his potential. He didn't even know if he could reach the peak of the night realm before his death. In the next moment, Henry released a vertical slash that left a deep wound on the monster's body. It made a whimpering sound. For the first time since it showed itself, the disaster-grade white-tailed desolate dog revealed a look of fear. It slowly retreated while warily looking at the old warrior. It barked at its subordinates, commanding them to protect it, but they were effortlessly killed by Henry. The monster turned its head and looked at the bedeviled Cornelius that were about to bloom. It hesitated for a moment before it ran away. Seeing this, Henry snorted. He rushed toward the retreating monster and made a swinging motion. Whoosh! The alpha white-tailed desolate dog was only able to run a few meters before it was cut in half. Henry approached its corpse with an indifferent expression. He then bent down and took out the beast's soul crystal hidden within its internal organs. After looking at the shiny crystal, he wiped it clean using his clothes before putting it inside a leather pouch. He then turned around to check the battle situation. There were still a few monsters, but they were no longer a threat to the group. In another 10 minutes, the last white-tailed desolate dog collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Gather the beast's soul crystals and the monster corpses, Henry shouted. Everyone immediately moved into action. The warriors of House Silversword had already mastered the art of dissecting monster corpses, so they quickly removed all the usable monster parts. Rollins' group observed them carefully. They were only good at searching herbs and elixirs, so they weren't as good as Henry's subordinates. Old man, you will get used to it. Rollins felt someone tapping his shoulders. He looked to the side and realized that it was the young knight named Aldrin. Sir, how are you guys so good at this? He couldn't help but ask. Aldrin was taken aback. He rubbed his chin using his bloodied hand as he responded. If you go through a few more battles, you will master it. Rollins looked confused upon hearing his response. He wanted to ask more questions, but Aldrin had already walked away, leaving Rollins with a baffled look. I have a bad feeling about those words. Sir Rollins, can you help us here? There are still a lot of monsters to dissect. Yes, I'm coming. While everyone was busy collecting the valuable parts from the monsters' corpses, Henry squinted his eyes. He could sense that more monsters were coming and their number wasn't small. His face darkened. Did the smell of the corpses attract them here? Or could it be? He looked at the bedeviled Cornelius and found out that some of them had already bloomed. The petals of these flowers were fully pink and they emitted an enticing scent that was even more fragrant than honey. The flowers have bloomed. Quick! Gather the flowers that have bloomed, but make sure that you won't destroy them. He shouted. Yes, sir. Everyone sensed the urgency in his voice, so they quickly collected the bedeviled Cornelius. Luckily, the plant wasn't that difficult to collect and it also wasn't frail like other elixirs. Why is this one red? Weird.